Hello, everyone, and welcome back. I'm Ericka, Sallee, speaker, author, transformation success coach, and owner of True Synergy. You know, I get excited because I help women and organizations to move the barriers that stand in the way of their success. So if moving doubt, fear, insecurity, creating healthy, whole teams is something that you're interested in, then I encourage you to go ahead and subscribe to this channel, share it out, and be sure to turn on those notifications so that you are the first to know when new videos are uploaded. So today's topic is align with what fulfills you. Okay, align with what fulfills you. And so this is a really simple exercise that I want to share with you because I do believe that many of us are just kind of going through the motions and doing the things that we think we should do or doing stuff that we think other people want us to do. And somewhere in between, we look up and say, am I really doing the thing that makes me feel good on the inside? And when we get caught up in everything else that people want us to do, that then becomes the barrier to us creating the best version of ourselves, which you and I are entitled to do. We absolutely deserve that. So I want to show you this really quick exercise. This is something that I do very often with my one-on-one coaching clients. So I wanted to kind of lay it out for you. So here's the question. If you're the person who says, it's time for me to start figuring out what does fulfillment even look like? How do I begin to discover it? How do I entertain it? What are some of the things I need to start thinking about in order to move me from where I am right now to where perhaps I want to be? So I want you to take out a piece of paper and a pen. Now I get it. You may be watching this at a time where, maybe you're at the gym working out. Maybe you're in your car. Or maybe you're just not in a place where you can actually do this exercise. I want you to then mark this video so that you can come back to it and really work through this exercise and start to think about this question. What is fulfilling to me? How can I align with what is fulfilling to me? So here's what you do. So I have a piece of paper here, nothing fancy, and I've drawn 3 columns. Of course, at the top, I said, the exercise is to align with what fulfills you. So there's really 3 columns. The first is thinking about, well, what does fulfill me? And you begin to list those things. The second column is how do I align with that? And then the third is, well, what are the boundaries that I need to create in order for me to start drawing back to what fulfills me? So let me talk about how that might look. So the first column, and I'll keep it handy so you can see. So the first column, this question, well, what does fulfill me? This is the column that really helps you to begin thinking inwardly, to introspect, or to kind of go in and say, well, you know what, let me think about that question. Either you know it already, or you haven't given yourself the opportunity to figure it out. In either case, this column is a good brain dump, a brainstorm. A lot of times we're holding stuff here in our heads, and until we get it out on paper, we don't really give it life. So think of this column as the opportunity to give that fulfillment life, okay? So you might just take this column and just start writing some things down. Maybe you say, oh, well, one of the things that fulfills me is that I love to read. One of the things that fulfills me is I love to go to museums. I love art and culture. One of the things that fulfills me is that I love to be able to give back. So community organizing and being part of, nonprofit organizations and being able to help support communities in need. Maybe that's something that fulfills you. So I'm giving you an opportunity to think about how this column, this brain dump might look. So let's take the very simple example of, okay, well, I love to read. And so to this point, you might be saying to yourself, well, you know what, but I really haven't had the time. I don't have a lot of opportunities. I don't have time to read a big, thick novel, whatever the case. You're probably telling yourself some things that are preventing you from this fulfillment, okay? So I'm going to use that as an example. Love to read, okay? So I've written that here in the first column, just so you can kind of see how this exercise works. So then the second column says, well, what aligns with that fulfillment? If I love to read and I say, well, I don't really have time to sit down and read a thick novel, or when I come home in the evening, or when I shut down work, I don't really have time. Okay, so there's a whole nother conversation around time. But anyway, so let's say that's it. So what aligns you with this fulfillment is, well, maybe there's an audiobook, right? I can listen to audiobooks. Okay, that's one thing. Or maybe you say, you know what would align with me loving to read is I could take out maybe 15 minutes per day to read something that I enjoy, okay? And then maybe the third thing is you say, well, maybe I will spend some time going to the library. Now, I know in the age of COVID, how we show up to public places looks different. So let's just say in a world where you can, and I know many things are opening back up, so this actually might be an option to align. So I've really literally just written down some things, okay? So if I love to read, then what aligns me with that is I could do audiobooks. I could do, 15 minutes a day. I can go to the library. Those are just 3 things that if you say, okay, how can I align with that thing? Then this last column is probably where I would say this is the barrier breaker column, okay? So if this is the column to allow you to introspect and to be able to bring the fulfillment to life, then this is the column that is the barrier breaker, because this is, well, how do I set the boundaries that are going to help me to align with what I enjoy and bring these 2 pieces together, okay? That's really what this column is for. So, okay, well, how do you set the boundaries? So you say, okay, I love to read. To this point, I haven't had the opportunity. And so one of the boundaries might be that if you say, oh, let's take this 15-minute a day option for alignment. You might say, well, one of the boundaries is that I set time on my calendar every day, or maybe you say I want to at least read 3 times a week. You get to decide what that looks like. So let's say you decide that it is every day. So you'll say, okay, let me set time on my calendar. I'm writing quickly and scribbling at the same time, right? So that's a boundary. Why is that a boundary? So I've written it here, set time on calendar. It's a boundary because what it does is 2 things. It reminds you that this is the time that you've set aside for yourself, number 1. Number 2, it also lets other people know that you are not available for 15 minutes a day because you've decided to align with what fulfills you. Okay, so this is the barrier breaker column. This is that moment of transformation that allows you to move from, okay, here is what fulfills me, to this point I may have made all kinds of excuses or come up with lots of stories in my head as to why I cannot align with this particular thing, right? But instead, what I want to show you is there is a way to create the boundaries so that you can then connect, okay, this is what fulfills me. This is how I can align myself with it. And in order for me to do it, here are some things that I need to do. 1, maybe I set time on that calendar. And even if you say, oh, I love to read, but maybe I don't pick up a book and actually read the words, but I like to listen. And so one of the boundaries might be that on your way to work, or on your way to the grocery store, or on your way to get your nails done, or on your way to go to the hardware store, that you can listen to a book. Right? So the boundary that you're creating is that you're like, okay, here is the time. So instead of me listening to the news, or instead of me listening to some of the music I love to listen to, let me pop in the audiobook. So that's the boundary that I'm creating in terms of using my time to align with what fulfills me. So I wanted to use a very simple example to get us to start thinking about how to shift our mindset from, okay, this is what I think I like to do, but I'm not sure how to bring that about. We sometimes put so much emphasis and analysis on why we can't do something. And what I'm suggesting is that maybe if we shift that and put the same level of analysis in, well, how can I do it? Then that's what makes this exercise one that can be very simple. And so you can use this for the simplest of things that fulfill you. And you can also use it for the things that you say, oh my gosh, well, what fulfills me is if I'm able to start my own business, my own nonprofit, because the fulfilling part is I love to be able to help people. I love to be able to show people how they can make a better way for themselves. And so how can you align with that? Well, it might be starting to connect with people who are in the circle that you want to be in. It may be doing the research to see, well, what does it take to start a business or start a nonprofit? Can I connect with groups on Facebook who have the same interests and the same missions as what I'm interested in? See, that's how that alignment might look. And then the boundaries, of course, is, setting that time aside. That's one that is probably a boundary that can fit with anything that you do in terms of this exercise. Another boundary might be to cut off certain conversations with people who may not necessarily understand or support your vision for what is fulfilling to you. So there's lots of different ways to play around with this exercise. So I wanted to take this opportunity to share this with you so that you could apply it to whatever is relevant for you. And if by chance you have not given yourself the opportunity to even say, well, what does that look like for me? When I think about fulfillment, I haven't even started to think about it because I'm thinking about fulfillment for everyone else. I'm going to encourage you to use this conversation today in this very simple exercise to start writing some things down. And I know you might say, well, I'll come up with a list of 10 things. So I would say take a few of those things, walk it through this exercise. Once you get the hang of it, then you can go back to your list and apply the same exercise to the other things, and then shift yourself into the action needed in order to align with what fulfills you. So if this has been something that you're saying to yourself, I could use more of a deep dive or additional conversation on what this might look like for me, then I encourage you to visit my website, truesynergy.org. I always like to spell it just so people know there's no E in the TRU part. So it's TRUSYNERGY.org. And then let's set up some time to talk about how this or something else might help you to move into your transformational moment to create the best version of yourself. So I look forward to seeing you all again real soon. Until I do, take care of yourselves and be well. And also remember this, that transformation begins when we break barriers to find our true synergy. Yes, the essence of who we were created to be. See you next time.